Transported to another world, boy uses past knowledge to rival gods. Having been in an accident, the last scene our protagonist witnesses is the hospital. Reincarnated at the age of 34, our protagonist is in the presence of his mother, Zenith, and father, Paul. With 6 months passing, Rudeus, our protagonist, keeps up with his perverted habits, even peeping at their maid Lilia. With quite old technology, Rudeus is astonished to learn the world houses magic. Able to now walk, Rudeus begins to self-study the laws of magic, learning that magic is created via an incantation or a magic circle. Chanting water ball, Rudy is able to produce a ball of water, but by imagining the structure of water forming a ball in his head, he's able to create the same water ball, without the use of an incantation. Having exhausted his mana pool, MP, Rudeus faints, vowing to grow it over time. Through trial and error, Rudeus is able to figure out the process of casting the water ball spell. It goes create, set size, firing speed then execute. Having ascended to intermediate level, Rudy decided to try out a higher level spell. Finishing the chant, Rudeus creates a massive ball of water destroying the wall of their house. Having found out that her son is capable of intermediate magic, Zenith and Paul agree to hire Rudeus a magic tutor. Expecting an elderly gentleman, they are instead surprised to be greeted by Roxy, a teenage girl. Teaching Rudeus of the 7 ranks for each magic, Roxy shows off her mastery of water and healing, having destroyed a tree only to heal it. Not expecting much for Rudy, Roxy is shocked to witness Rudy cast a spell, omitting all the words. Celebrating Roxy's first lesson, the family throws a feast. Flashing back to his past, Rudeus is shown to have been a 34 unemployed shut-in. On the night of his passing, his father had enough and kicked. Whilst wandering the streets at night, he saw an oncoming vehicle about to take the lives of students, resulting in him sacrificing his life for theirs. Whilst learning about other races, Roxy reveals that she hails from a race of terrifying demons, the Supered. Their history with humans is not pleasant, as during the Laplace War, many innocents were slaughtered. Before heading to bed, Roxy warns that Supereds that have green hair and a red gem on their forehead are very dangerous. Continuing to progress in terms of magic and swordplay, Rudy is still shackled down by regrets in his previous life. With Rudy's 5th birthday arriving, it's tradition to celebrate every 5th birthday. As the party comes to an end, Rudeus is gifted a sword by his father, a book from his mother and a magic wand from his teacher. With Rudy's final test arriving, Rudy overcomes his fear of the outside world, and ventures on horseback, with Roxy to an open field. Beginning to chant her most powerful spell, Roxy is able to cast Cumulonimbus, a sacred, level spell. Passing the torch to Rudeus, our protagonist is able to perfectly mimic such a spell. Having taught all she can to Rudeus, Roxy bids Rudy and his family farewell, no longer of any use. Parting with a graduation gift, a totem of good luck. With more time passing, Rudeus is more confident with exploring the fields and the outstretches. Stumbling onto a kid getting bullied, Rudeus is easily able to scare the bullies off, learning that the kid, Sylph, is of the elf race. Teaching Sylph magic, Rudy heads home during the evening. Confronting Rudy, his father demands he apologize for hurting another kid. When Rudy attempts to argue, he's met with Paul physically disciplining him. With a cool head, Rudy explains that the kids were bullying an innocent. Without words, Paul apologizes to. Later that night we see Rudy's father see his old man in him, afraid that Rudy might leave the house, just like how he left his father in a similar argument. With 6 months passing, Rudy is amazed to see Sylph's mana pool drastically expand. On top of that, Sylph's able to learn incantation-less magic upon their first attempt. Ecstatic, Sylph runs through a cornfield, with Rudy tagging along. Exhausted, they realize that it has begun to rain. Deciding to stop by Rudy's house, Sylph and Rudy decide to dry off, only for Rudy to realize that Sylph is actually Sylphiette, a girl. Attempting to apologize for the misunderstanding, Sylph just get more upset at Rudy. With a couple encouraging words from his father, Rudeus is able to ultimately make up with Sylph, with them moving forward from the experience. With winter arriving, Zenith announces that she is bearing another child. Celebrating, the family realize that their maid is also bearing a child. Realizing that Paul impregnated 2 women, Zenith surmises that letting her maid, Lilia, travel back home would be suicide, due to the extreme cold weather. Forced to step in, Rudeus is able to pin all the blame onto his father, and mention that having more kids would be beneficial for the family. Unable to deny Rudeus's points, Zenith forgives Lila. Birthing their children, Zenith gives birth to Norn and Lilia to Aisha. Rudeus, chatting to Sylph, realizes that he'll eventually have to attend school, which Sylph believes he'll leave and eventually forget about her. Bringing up his situation to his family, Rudeus agrees to work and earn enough, in order to bring Sylph along with him, to school. Calling on an old friend, Ghislaine, a beast-human hybrid, Paul sends Rudy off, by testing his resolve. Chucking Rudy to the side, Paul knowing he's at a disadvantage when clashing swords with his father, Rudy attempts to make space and pick away at Paul with spells. But his movement is unmatched, ending the duel with Paul's victory. Waking up, Rudeus is alone with Ghislaine. Gifted with a letter from Paul, Rudeus is told that, until he turns 12 he'll be living and working alone. Knowing that he and Sylph will benefit greatly, spending time apart and not relying too much on each other to grow. Arriving at the destination, Rudeus introduces himself to Philip Rudeus Greyrat. Introducing Rudeus to Philip's daughter. Making her entrance, the young lady shows quite the temper, assaulting Rudeus for talking back to her. Fleeing from her wrath, Rudeus asks for Philip's help in disciplining the young lady. Having been kidnapped with the lady, Rudeus is shocked to see the kidnappers take their job too seriously, roughing up the lady real bad. Making use of his earth magic, Rudeus is able to escape out a window. Forcing the lady to act properly, Rudeus heals her, before beginning their heading home. Encountering one of the people that work at her manor, both are relieved, only to realize that he is working with some thugs to kidnap the lady. Offering Rudy money, Rudeus decides to do the right thing, and send a signal flare hoping for help. With the use of earth and fire magic, Rudeus is able to disarm one of the captives and grab hold of the lady. Unfortunately, his position puts his life at risk. With his life flashing before his eyes, Ghislaine arrives. Showing off her mastery, she's able to easily dispatch all the culprits. Returning to her father, she warms up to Rudeus, revealing her name to be Rudeus Greyrat. With Eris's grandfather and mother learning of the incident, his grandfather acknowledges Rudeus as a worthy tutor. Additionally, as a thanks, her grandfather demands that Eris ask for Rudeus's services beginning to teach magic, reading, writing and arithmetic to both Ghislaine and Eris. We see Rudeus forced to search for Eris. Finding her fast asleep, Rudy is forced to endure her wrath upon waking her. With no days off, Rudeus decides to treat Ghislaine and Eris to a shopping day, whilst also learning about pricing in this world. Heading back, Rudeus notices a flying object in the sky. Oblivious to the object, Rudeus learns that the flying fortress houses the Dragon King, one of the 3 heroes that beat the demon god, Laplace. With Eris's birthday arriving, Rudeus is asked by a maid to help practice dancing with her, as it's tradition for kids their age to perform and it's a family pride to perform for guests. Confronting Eris on her reasons for her lack of focus, Rudeus is ultimately forced to spend countless hours training with her. In the meantime, Rudeus begins to learn a new language whilst writing letters to Roxy. With the special day arriving, everyone is dressed in stunning attire. Nervous of how Eris will do, Rudy bears witness to Eris embarrassing herself, allowing the nerves to get to her. Offering a hand, Rudeus is able to calm her down. Slowly getting into the groove, the two begin to harmonize, just like in practice, topping off the performance with everyone clapping, with Eris's grandfather proud of the two. Having noticed Rudeus's stunning performance, girls begin to flirt with Rudeus, only for Eris to get jealous. Later that night, before heading to sleep, Rudeus gifts Eris and Ghislaine a wand, just like the one Roxy gifted to him. On top of that, Ghislaine gifts Eris one of her rings, as a memento. With time passing, Rudeus's birthday arrives. Having planned a surprise for Rudy, Rudeus shed tears of joy knowing there are people that care so much for him. Witnessing such a sight, Eris's mother breaks her cold facade and embraces Rudy. So touched she offers Iris to marry Rudy, only for Eris to blushingly As a gift, the Greyrat family gifts Rudeus with a powerful staff. That night, Rudeus and Eris share a touching moment, thankful for one another. Cutting to Paul and Zenith's household, they all said they couldn't attend Rudy's 10th birthday due to the surge in monsters in the area recently. Back with Rudeus, we see him test out a spell with his new wand. Upon his casting, they are interrupted by a being from above. Having descended from the fortress, Ghislaine is forced to intercept the being's advances. With a sudden burst from the sky, a light expands engulfing everything in its way. With Ghislaine as its first victim, Rudeus runs to Eris pulling her in. Waking up in a dream-like state, Rudeus is in his old body. He's greeted by the man-god. Demanding answers for his situation, the man-god refuses to answer. Before leaving, the man-god states the following: the light is due to a massive mana disaster and it has displaced everyone. Upon waking up, there will be a man nearby that they must trust and help. Waking up, Rudeus is greeted by a superd, Ruijerd Superdia. Learning that they've been displaced onto the demon continent. Eventually Eris wakes up, realizing there is a superd in their presence. She naturally is terrified only to realize that Ruijerd is friendly. Heading to a nearby village, Ruijerd shows off his incredible skills slaying a wild creature. Greeting the villagers, Rudeus is shocked to realize that this village is Roxy's home village. That night Ruijerd begins to reveal the truth behind their history. It's revealed that the superds were tricked by Laplace the demon god, when they were offered mind-controlling spears. The spears made the superds go berserk, killing innocent. Sadly, when they realized that it was too late, they couldn't do anything but atone for their sins, forced to surrender to the lies people spread about the soup. Having gathered the bare essentials, Rudeus and Eris thank Roxy's village for being so hospitable, setting off. Arriving at a different village, the gang decide to mask the fact that Ruijerd is a superd and change the way they all look. Introducing themselves as Dead End and applying to the guild to gain money for a ship to travel home, they are forced to ignore the glaring eyes from the other regulars in the guild. Renting a room to stay, Eris gets into a fight with some fellow adventurers, only for Rudeus to apologize, agreeing to work together with them. The next day, heading to the meetup with these adventurers, Ruijerd notices suspicious activity. Further investigating, it's seen that some disgusting adventurers are running a human trafficking business. Enraged, Ruijerd murders the leader, almost killing the younger criminals involved. With Eris and Rudeus calming Ruijerd down, they're able to free the captives and forgive the younger criminals. Up for a challenge, the gang decide to use the criminals to obtain a higher quest, to gather money quicker. Setting off on a quest, the gang and the adventurers the other day decide to battle the beast. With Rudeus underestimating the creature, he is woken to reality noticing one of the members being instantly killed. Unable to move, Ruijerd is forced to knock some sense into Rudeus. Focusing up, the team is able to slay said beast, completing the quest. Returning home, one of the regulars blackmail Rudeus. Having found out that they're using the criminals to obtain better quests, he asks to be paid half of all the quests, else he'll report and have Rudeus's guild license revoked. In a pickle, Rudeus decides to kill the regular, only for Ruijerd to reveal his superd race. Terrified, Ruijerd is able to scare off the regular. The scene ends with Ruijerd, Rudeus and Eris making a pact. To honor the pact, Ruijerd shaves his head and promises to hold his bloodthirst, thinking twice before giving into his killing sense. With no other option, the gang is forced to head to the Asura kingdom by foot. Thanks for watching. Check out one of our other videos. Subscribe, like and comment.